Arun's life was a constant storm of noise, and it all lived inside his head. From the moment he woke up until he closed his eyes at night, his thoughts ran wild unfinished tasks, fears about the future, regrets from the past. He wanted to build a meaningful life, to rise above mediocrity, but every attempt left him exhausted. His mind was too crowded, and in that crowd, his dreams could hardly breathe. One afternoon, tired of the weight pressing down on him, Arun sought the guidance of a teacher who was known in the town for his unusual wisdom. The teacher lived simply in a quiet house on the edge of a hill. Arun poured out his troubles, speaking rapidly, hoping the teacher would give him some magical solution. He spoke of his failures, of the pressure from society, of how he wanted to do everything but achieved nothing. The teacher listened silently. He said nothing, only nodding slowly as Arun continued. After some time, the teacher brought out a teapot and 2 cups. He began pouring tea into one of them. Arun paused in his speech, watching as the teacher kept pouring even after the cup filled to the brim. The hot tea spilled over, running across the table. Alarmed, Arun exclaimed, "Master, the cup is full. It can't take any more." The teacher smiled gently and looked at him. "Just like this cup, your mind is full," he said. "You want me to pour wisdom into you, but there is no room. How can new thoughts enter when old ones are overflowing? Empty your mind first. Only then will you have space for clarity." Arun sat in silence, struck by the simple yet powerful truth. For the first time, he realized that his greatest obstacle wasn't the world outside, but the chaos within. Arun returned home that evening with the teacher's words echoing in his heart. Empty your mind first. The idea seemed simple, yet it felt like moving a mountain. His thoughts clung tightly to him, memories of mistakes, the sting of rejection, fears about tomorrow. Still, he decided to try. The next morning, before the city awakened, Arun sat in a quiet corner of his room, closed his eyes, and focused on his breath. Inhale, exhale. At first, his mind rebelled. Thoughts rushed in faster, like waves crashing against rocks. He felt restless, even frustrated, but he stayed with it. Day after day, he returned to that silence. Slowly, he began to notice something remarkable. The thoughts never truly stopped, but he no longer chased after them. He watched them come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. The past no longer chained him, and the future no longer frightened him. In that stillness, he discovered tiny pockets of peace. It wasn't only his inner world that began to change. Arun looked around his life and saw the clutter he had carried for years. Old grudges sat in his heart like rust, so he chose forgiveness. Broken friendships and toxic ties weighed heavily, so he released them without anger. Even the unnecessary possessions in his room, objects he hadn't touched in years, he began to give away. Each act of letting go felt like dropping a heavy stone from his back. With every burden released, Arun grew lighter, freer. He realized emptiness was not emptiness at all. It was space. Space for joy, for wisdom, for clarity. For the first time in years, he could breathe deeply, and in that breath, he felt the quiet power of renewal stirring within him. As the weeks passed, Arun began to notice a shift inside himself. Where his mind once felt like a tangled knot, it now felt open, like a wide and quiet field. He discovered that in the stillness of an emptied mind, inspiration had space to rise. Ideas that once seemed distant or impossible now appeared with clarity. Instead of being buried under confusion, his thoughts aligned like stars forming constellations. For the first time, he could hear the quiet whispers of his own heart. When challenges came, and they always did, Arun no longer reacted with panic. One day at work, a sudden problem arose that would have once sent him into a spiral of fear. Instead, he paused, took a slow breath, and emptied himself of the noise that screamed for him to act rashly. From that emptiness, solutions surfaced naturally, and to his surprise, They worked better than anything he had forced in the past. People around him noticed the change. His colleagues admired his calmness in tense situations, while his friends felt the warmth of his presence. Even his family, who once worried about his restless energy, now found comfort in his quiet strength. Arun realized that his transformation was not only helping him, it was touching the lives of those he cared for. He came to understand that emptiness was not weakness, but power. It was not the absence of thought, but the freedom from unnecessary noise. It gave him focus, sharpened his vision, and filled him with a sense of peace that success alone could never provide. The emptier his mind became of fear, doubt, and anger, the fuller his life became with creativity, courage, and love. Arun had discovered that true strength is born from stillness. Years later, Arun stood backstage at a large auditorium, the hum of an eager crowd filling the air. He had been invited to speak to a gathering of young dreamers, people who reminded him of the man he once was, restless, burdened, and searching for answers. As he looked at the sea of expectant faces, a wave of gratitude washed over him. He remembered the small house on the hill, the overflowing teacup, and the lesson that had quietly transformed his life. When his name was called, Arun stepped onto the stage. The applause faded into silence as he stood before the audience. He took a moment, breathing deeply, grounding himself in the stillness he had cultivated over the years. Then he began to speak. "My friends," he said gently, "life will pour many things into you, worries, opinions, doubts, and endless noise. If you try to hold it all, you will overflow, just as a full cup cannot take more. This was my mistake for many years. I chased success while my mind was drowning in chaos. But when I learned to empty my mind, I found clarity, peace, and strength. I discovered that emptiness is not losing, it is making space for what truly matters." The hall grew quiet, the kind of silence born not from boredom, but from reflection. Arun continued, sharing stories of forgiveness, letting go, and the power of stillness in moments of fear. His words were not polished like a scholar's lecture. They were simple, honest, and real. As he ended his talk, Arun looked out at the faces before him. Some carried tears, others smiles, but all carried a new spark of understanding. In that moment, he knew his journey had come full circle. What he had once received, he was now passing on a reminder that greatness begins the moment we learn to let go.